Hi, this is Ed Cohen. I'm in San Diego, California, and our very special guest today is Angie Weinberger in Zurich, Switzerland. Hi, Angie. Welcome again to Global TV.
Hello, Ed. Nice to be here again.
Yeah, so you're looking great. I love you in purple. It's great. Well, that's your favorite color, isn't it?
Yeah, pink and purple are
Uh-huh.
actually my favorite colors. That's true.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
cool.
my whole website is purple. So
I see that. Yeah, your global mobility guidebook is in purple, and
that's true.
global people transitions is in purple.
Yeah, I'm
And
trying to keep the brand,
well, here it's 8 o'clock, and we need more cappuccino. So I want to learn more about your specialty these days in this COVID era and changing issues, people issues, diversity and inclusion means a lot of things. So let's talk about minority, quote unquote minority, expats, and people fitting in, people transitions. This okay for today?
Absolutely. Very good.
So what's
Yeah.
happening in Zurich area? Are there is there corporate activity going on now?
Well, I think generally since March, expat assignments are pretty much at a halt. Many countries, they have very restrictive immigration laws at the moment. So we're mainly focusing on cross-border activities right now, a lot of them in the European area. In my current project, I have one or two expats, but it's really a very small group of people. Unfortunately, some potential assignments were already canceled because the waiting period just got too long. And, people also found out that, hey, I can do a project in Singapore from Zurich, or from another place. Yeah. So a lot of project work has basically been done virtually now. Yeah.
So you're in Zurich, but you can work anywhere in the world.
That is true. I can even participate in a conference that is happening in the Middle East in 2 weeks, like yourself.
Yeah, we'll see you there.
We can be on a panel together, and we're not even there.
Yeah, I know.
Brave new world.
I look forward to that. It'll be interesting. Rushcom seems to know what they're doing.
Absolutely,
and so that's comforting.
So let me quickly introduce the diversity and inclusion topic, because I think, honestly, Ed, I don't think it is talked enough about this topic in global mobility.
Well, people are confused. I don't know what it means.
Yeah, and when you look at me, you see a woman. Yeah, so I also have a few minority experiences myself over my corporate career. For example, I was on an assignment to India, which, I really appreciated that I got the opportunity. I pushed for the opportunity. But obviously, being a woman, it's more than 10 years ago. Honestly, it's almost 15 years ago now. Being a woman in a professional setting in India at the time was actually different than being a man. Yeah, so even though I was an expat and I had certain rights, there were, for example, events where men and women were separated. So yes, there is a different experience when you are from a minority group. And then, we're not even talking about cultural minorities, people with a refugee background, people of color, everybody here in Europe, but also I assume it's similar in the US, everybody has a lesser chance to be sent on an assignment just because of assumptions that people make. So we have looked at some data from KPMG, and it was pretty clear that 60% of the participants said in that survey, well, we're global mobility, but we're not choosing the expats. So we don't have any influence on the diversity and inclusion aspect of it. However, I think that's a bit short-sighted. Yeah, I mean, shouldn't your role as a global mobility manager also be to make sure that you have a diverse population? And then another argument that I found also a bit ridiculous was by 30% of people, well, you know, if you're moving to another culture and you meet people of other cultures, that's already enough diversity and inclusion. But there's still the implication that the majority of the people who are sent on assignment follow the white male breadwinner model with the, you know, one spouse, two kids, one dog approach to the family. And the last number is around 40% said that they have diversity and inclusion goals as part of their global mobility programs. However, I guess 40% is not a lot, but then also I'm wondering what kind of goals are there. So yes, there's probably been progress in the last 10 years, but I think we still have a lot to do.
Yeah. So in spite of, despite all the black swan things going on now, and which means volatility and uncertainty and craziness and ambiguity, are companies allowing people to get training from you and others virtually, even though they don't have an assignment?
Again, very good question. Now, you know that, you know, my portfolio is quite diverse. So what I still can do easily is one-on-one coaching, because I'm quite used to doing that online anyway. I have one client, for example, at the moment who sits in the UK. He's the spouse moving over to Switzerland with his wife. This, by the way, has been a phenomenon for the last 5 years. I've actually had more male expat spouses than female expat spouses to coach. So that works really like in normal times. I think also in Switzerland, we see that companies are hiring again, which is good. Moves are happening into Switzerland again. And the other training part that still works is for global mobility managers. So I'm also training tax consultants, immigration consultants on global mobility topics in general. And here we even have a possibility to run a physical workshop. I think that's because the situation is relatively safe here. But obviously, you know, a lot of trainings are moving online. And especially in intercultural training, diversity and inclusion training, there's a strong tendency to save cost, which I find honestly shameful. Yeah. And the way you save cost is that you ask people to go on a platform and run a test, for example. But in my view, this is not very effective. It's usually not leading to a lot of mindset change. And I think it's the mindset change that we actually need.
So are the current, I don't know what to say here. Is it the current managers of mobility, are they different from, say, 2 years ago, or even a year ago? Different kind of people?
I think generally, there's more awareness, and a lot of global mobility managers had to thrive now in this crisis situation. So also their scope has expanded. The breadth of the topics that they cover has expanded. And I think that's also given them more confidence. Global mobility managers are involved in very interesting strategic projects now. So it's not only the global mobility assignment administration that maybe we used to do 5 years ago. It's a lot more. I think there's a lot more strategy and supporting of important projects where the global mobility managers are really asked for support now.
So therefore, the people who have the responsibility now are, everybody's different, every company's different, but they are not junior people. They have more maturity, more business experience, rather than um, secretary kind of given more responsibility.
Yeah, and Ed, honestly, I think with the complexity in this industry, and the increasing complexity from compared to 10 years ago, we have a diversity of policies, we have a diversity of the population, we have increasing danger areas, we have more catastrophes happening around the world. And I think so with that complexity, also the profile of the global mobility manager had to become more senior. It was important that they could speak to the business on an eye-to-eye level. And I think, yes, that's definitely something I would agree to. I think you need to have 15 years to 20 years of experience to be successful as a global mobility manager nowadays. And, some of the tasks that we used to do 20 years ago when I started in this field, or 25 years ago, I don't even want to calculate it exactly. Many of those tasks can now be automated or, done through platforms or done through outsourcing by others. So it's not as administrative anymore as it used to be.
So the reality check here, those of us who've been around a while know that the position of a global mobility manager in a corporation, a multinational corporation, is extremely high profile because of the need to communicate openly and strongly with stakeholders, legal, tax, recruitment, comp and ben, personal issues, and managing all of this takes a person with maturity and a sense of know-how rather than being afraid to, someone who's fearful of talking with someone who's perceived to be smarter, or because they have a law degree, or they're a tax person. You have to have guts. You have to have a sense of self-worth and confidence to deal with so many stakeholders.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people are not trained to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. You probably know that I have a master's degree in global mobility from Erasmus University and Expertise Academy. And
that's
I
unusual.
have to say, yeah, it is. I think in Europe, it's the only master's degree in this area. And I have to say, it is actually helpful because I speak to very senior people in the organizations that I consult. And frankly, I'm not scared. But sometimes, people think, this person is just the HR, just the global mobility person. And you could be easily frightened, to state your opinion or to speak your mind. But that's, for example, something I personally feel, especially when it comes to diversity and inclusion topics, I should speak my mind. Give you an example. We had a discussion recently about a home office directive. And then I raised the point, why are we not using gender inclusive language here? Yeah? Why are we speaking of he? I mean, yes, this is the way it used to be, especially in the German language. It's very complicated to do this. But I don't accept it anymore. I don't accept it anymore.
Yeah. And so the people that you're dealing with are, they're just not thinking that's important.
Exactly. And you know what the worst thing is? That even sometimes women tell me, I just, maybe I'm not emancipated enough to think about this. So that's why I'm saying, we really need a mindset change. it is too easy to blame it on the business, and it's too easy to say, oh, this is the responsibility of HR. Because we're still part of the HR world, as global mobility managers. And B, I really think we should take a stand. We should say, yes, people, but look, here are two candidates, Alice and George. Yes, Alice just got married, but she has wanted to go on an international assignment for years. George, on the other hand, we know he just had a baby or his wife is pregnant. Yeah. The thing is, HR people usually don't have this personal information about the candidates. We usually have the information because we speak to the people directly.
Well, you're taking care of the needs, and you can't do that without having all this information.
And we can bring in our views. And also, we can, let's say, for example, if we have a gay couple, often the organization doesn't even know about it. And maybe the assignee doesn't want the organization to know about it. But still, maybe with a few good questions about the partner, I can at least find out how I can support the immigration process, because it's not going to be straightforward to every country. So, I need to have this detail in order to be able to be a good support for our population.
So the companies that are currently in this environment here, being October 1, relocating people into Switzerland, is it banking or is it manufacturing?
Across the board.
Really?
Some of my clients, they're in pharma, some are in banking. I would say yes, as I think the job market is picking up again, luckily, and we're bringing people into the country again. So at least, after 6 months of almost not a lot of movement, we see a bit more things happening at the moment, at least inbound side. Where I'm struggling at the moment is Asia. Like, I cannot really send anybody into Singapore or Hong Kong without them going through a full strict quarantine for 2 weeks with the whole family. And I honestly think it's kind of difficult if you have to stay in a hotel room with your 2 kids and your dog for 2 weeks.
No, that'll not happen. That'll blow up. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if not right away, then a week later. So this is really a crazy time right now. And boy, I can't wait for it to be over. So tell me about the changes as a result of all this going on. How are you changing your global mobility guidebook?
Well, I think I will probably take a even stronger focus when I update it next time, an even stronger focus on the family system, and give a new definition basically of a family system. Because one of the things I think we also haven't done properly, because the whole global mobility world originated from the army. A lot of the vocabulary stems from the US. Everything was more European, US centric. But I think we haven't fully embraced, for example, Indian and Chinese family constructs, where maybe it would be necessary to also bring in an elderly family member or to take the parents with you on assignment. So I think in my next update, I will definitely talk more. I mentioned it in some areas already, but I think I will even talk more about what we actually need to do with a more diverse sense of family in global mobility in terms of increasing policy, making selection wider, and looking at all this data, but also maybe providing other assignment types. Like shorter assignments, commuting assignments, virtual assignments, digital nomadism, all the trends that are coming up through the pandemic as well.
So what about the aspect of cultural awareness? In other words, a deeper dive into what makes people tick. And I'm different than you, and you're different from Susan or Mary or James. And so, everybody's different. So is it more of a reality check, more of a proactive psychosocial involvement with the transferees to ensure that there's clearer communication and therefore the risk of failure is mitigated by understanding the people more? Now, all of this without being intrusive, just having the wherewithal to understand, get the information, and then understand what to do in counseling the people and the companies, the stakeholders, to the realities of what it's like to relocate today.
Mm. Yeah, as I said earlier, I don't think the solution lies in asking people to go on a platform, search for the information themselves, run a little self-check on their cultural style preferences, and expecting that they will be fine. I think what I kind of like is an approach that I've seen now as a coach, where you have a platform where the assignee or the partner can just pick a coach and have a very short discussion, maybe just 45 minutes, about a topic of concern. So recently I've been contacted by somebody from the US. He said, well, we're thinking about moving to Germany. We're not 100% sure. Could you give us some pointers? And we had a 45-minute conversation. I was well prepared. I think he got all the information. And then at the end, he said, okay, now I'm going to go back to my wife. We're going to have a second discussion, and then we're going to make a decision. Yeah. So I think what I want to say is, I think what we need to do from an intercultural trainer and coach perspective, we need to provide support, hand-holding at the point of need. Yeah. So when the assignee has stress situation, for example, a communication issue, we should be there for them. But we shouldn't expect them to spend a whole day learning about cultural models, theory, and all of this when they're not even on the assignment yet. Yeah, or when they're in the middle of getting settled in and are in temporary accommodation, for example.
Let's talk about the destination in relation to everything that we've just been talking about. Does it matter? I'm sure it does, but to what degree does it matter where they're going? For instance, Heidelberg is a beautiful cosmopolitan area, but Dresden, Leipzig, east of Berlin, not so much, right?
It's funny you're referring to Heidelberg because this is where I grew up. I don't know if you knew that.
I happen to check you out. Yes. And I've been there, so it's beautiful.
No, it is a beautiful city, and and yes, I would say, in Europe, obviously, it depends really where you're going, whether it is an international city like Berlin, which has been growing so international over the last 10 years. Like people from all over Europe want to live there, or Rotterdam or Amsterdam, places like this where you immediately, or Zurich, where you immediately integrate as an expat and you feel like you're part of a global village, or whether you're going to a place which is maybe more traditional, maybe a bit, let's say, backwards, conservative, or even, if we think about some areas of Eastern Germany, I'm not sure I would advise a Black person to go there, honestly. Even my partner is from Pakistan. So, we have to, sometimes I really have to think about whether we could go to certain places together, or whether he would be confronted with certain repercussions because of his skin color. So I think it is actually important to see where people are going, but it's also important to see that sometimes there are a lot of prejudice, even in Switzerland. You could be encountering racism. I've had several clients reporting issues to me. And, the sad thing is that, for example, one of them was a Muslim woman. She was fluent in German. She grew up in Germany. but she said after a while, I'm not going to wear my headscarf anymore because people are actually attacking me in the tram. Another client of mine was from the US. He had a migrant background, so he looked Asian, but he was as American as you are. and he said, I'm often checked by the police for my papers. So, like people of color have a different experience in this country than white people. So, and we're talking about Switzerland, a rich, safe country in itself. So
yeah,
I'm just saying,
so much,
you have to be prepared that your experience is different depending on how you look. And I think, that's sometimes it's a shocking thing to actually say.
the world of global business is fraught with challenges, and people are fearful. There's extremism because of the economic crisis brought on by the virus, and the recent waves of immigration, almost forced immigration into different societies, whether it's Germany or Nordic countries or wherever. It's created concern and a fear element in people who are not exposed to global business and the global village, as you beautifully put. So I don't know what the answer is to that, other than just more exposure, more training, and a little common sense all around by everybody about where not to go, what not to do, and just to keep it in mind, just because you have to deal with where you are.
Yeah, I think
can't hide out.
Yeah, maybe also one tip I would have for my colleagues, my global mobility colleagues, trainer colleagues, coach colleagues, is just not to make any assumptions because of your background. Yeah, because you could have a very different experience just because you have a different status in your own country, and you could have, I think you need a lot of sensitivity when these issues are addressed to you. So I noticed that I have a lot more coaching clients now with let's say, a minority background. Yeah, so cultural minority background, even though they might have grown up in France, for example. But I think, honestly, they have a harder time to find a job in Switzerland because of the way they look. So I'm trying to address this by just being sensitive, by being there. But I have not been in their shoes. I have not had the experience myself because I've always been, I always had my white privilege. So, so I think, what we can do is to be there, to listen, to support as much as we can, and to give as much help as we can.
So this is an interesting topic, and it's ongoing for sure. So the training that you would give somebody from a quote different background from where they're entering or bound for changes because first of all, you have to bring the topic up and get acknowledgement that it's an issue. And then how do you tip people? How do you educate people? And in what way? Because some people are not looking at each other in the eye like you and I are at this moment. They're self-deprecatory. I can't remember how to say that properly, but I certainly know what it means. And I'm an alpha guy, so I don't have that issue, but many people do, and they are more reserved or fearful of how they're coming across. Meanwhile, they have to deal with these situations. They have to learn these situations. So it's a psychological, social psychological issue. And boy, the training that you must have, and then the application of your wisdom to these people who need to understand this without getting them upset.
Yeah, it's sometimes a very fine balance, Ed. Yeah. And I sometimes have to tread very carefully that I'm not too pushy. Like for example, I sometimes feel like maybe I could be sometimes a bit too pushy because I can't feel like, for example, the fear of contacting people anymore because I am so beyond this. Yeah.
So when you say pushy, that's like an American slang, but what you're meaning is being directive.
Directive, yeah, but with my coaching clients, one of the biggest barrier is often that they don't reach out to other people. Yeah. So they just apply to jobs online and they think this will get them a job. So I really work with them on their networking strategy, and I developed a few tools for more introverted, shyer, and maybe also people, especially with other backgrounds, who might not feel so self-confident about reaching out, or women who had a longer career break, for example. Yeah, because they have a 5-year gap in their resume. So they often think, what have I got to bring to the table here? So we're working on networking strategies, and I really I give them like contacts, and I tell them to contact my clients and do like blind dates, meet people for lunch, but also like one-on-one conversations. And it's sometimes very daunting for them.
So to what extent are you using Zoom in your counseling so that people don't have to wait to have a face-to-face, maybe wearing a mask or being 6 feet apart, but doing it this way, in somewhat of a controlled environment? But it's almost like watching like the American sitcom from a few years ago called All in the Family, or the Jeffersons, or where you get a mix of people interacting and all the issues come up, but done in a theatrical way. It just sort of hits the nail on the head, bang, right on target. And yet everybody understands exactly what's going on. But they understand it differently, but they all see the same thing. Rather than the issue of putting somebody in a sweat kind of a basis, going to lunch with someone who they don't know and would never want to care about anyway, but I have to meet this person.
You know
So
what?
a lot of issues.
The funny thing is, when people start to do this, and I get very passionate about this, like when my clients start to do this and they're relaxed and they research the person and they get to understand their background a bit more before they meet them, most of the time something amazing comes out of these conversations. Yeah. And I always make this experience, like even if I don't feel like going and meeting somebody, every time I meet someone new, I make a new amazing experience. I meet a person behind an image. I meet a person behind a photograph. And every time something interesting comes out of those conversations. So honestly, I really think it's an attitude topic. And when you have the right attitude, it's a wonderful thing to do. So that's why I say it's the magic of networking.
So your last name, would you prefer to pronounce it with a V or a W?
And that's a funny question because I cannot hear the difference. Well, it's a W. It's Weinberger, but I know that it's hard for me to pronounce it differently.
Yeah. So I get it.
In university, I had friends, English-speaking friends, and they would laugh when I said vodka, because for them it always sounded like I was mispronouncing the V.
Yeah. So all they have to do is be in Europe for a while, and you'll start saying vodka also, and smile.
Yeah. So that was actually my nickname at the time.
Well, I love vodka myself. So, where do we go from here as we come to a close? I hate to end this because it's so enlightening and fun, and I'd love to be there in your office in that red chair. That looks like
Mhm.
very comfortable.
It's my hot seat. When you come to Zurich, we're gonna have an interview with you in the hot seat
I see.
when we can travel again.
Yeah, but it's only for one, right? It looks like a love
That's
seat
actually,
with this
yeah,
too.
it's for two, but it's an old sofa and it has a family tradition, and yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah.
gonna
But
fall apart very soon.
yeah, now if two people are there, you got to wear masks.
That too.
Okay, so tell us about your programs of Hire Me or things like that, where you're very progressive in getting that message out. You
Yeah.
know, very
So
very specific about what your specialties are and that people ought to know about. So
yeah.
use this occasion now.
So I think I really should talk about Hire Me Express because, as I mentioned, a lot of my clients and their struggles, it's usually about finding a job in a new market. Yeah. So, for example, someone moving to France to follow their partner, or someone moving into Switzerland, having a career gap, and looking for a job. So, Hire Me Express is a program I designed based on a program I've been running for years to accelerate the job search for the expat partner. And we're now offering this program where it's accompanied by an online program, but it also contains 6 dedicated coaching sessions with me and my digital guru, Nabiha, who will help with the LinkedIn profile and the branding, for example.
So why 6?
It's well, I started with like 16 and now I've sort of condensed it down to 9. And then I thought, okay, I think we can accelerate it one more time and get to 6 sessions. But it's also to make it, to make it affordable, basically. Yeah. So, where my focus usually is our corporate clients. I work mainly for corporate clients, but this is one program I offer for private clients. And the price is always the same. We're not differentiating because of policy reasons. Yeah, many global mobility policies have now lump sum payments, so I don't think there's a need to differentiate whether the client is booking it directly or whether the company is booking the coaching. But here, this is really geared towards a price level where a private client could actually pay for it.
Good. No, that sounds great. So the intercultural training, it's fancy, too fancy, which means how do you deal with people who are not like you? Right? So there must be another way of saying that. Is there?
um, I would say it's about getting to understand your own cultural minting and your own cultural background and where you come from and why your perception is the way it is.
Ah, that's
And
good.
when you understand that, it is a lot easier to deal with the behaviors and the beliefs of other cultures.
So that's not being narcissistic. In other words, it's all about me, It's not that
Mm-hmm.
way because it's who are you understanding things the way you are and then understanding how other people see the same thing but from a different prism.
Yeah. Yeah. It's more like therapy. First need to understand yourself before you can enter good relationships with other people.
Fascinating conversation, and I would think that the companies and people that employ you, Angie, will walk away with a real solid feeling that they can learn something new, they can succeed in a different environment, and it's because of your sensibility and sensitivity. Um, and I'm not saying this to you because I'm buttering you up for something. It's just that it's obvious that you're an expert in this approach to counseling and training. And It's really needed. Ongoing education. Absolutely.
Yeah, you're totally right. Yeah.
So how do people
More and
get in
more.
touch with you?
Well, it's very easy. First of all, I'm on all social media. Yeah. But the easiest way is just email me, Angela at globalpeopletransitions.com. Find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Angie Weinberger. There are not so many with my name, so I'm actually quite easy to find. And I'm pretty sure you would also link to my profile.
Absolutely. Thanks for
Yes.
being our guest again on Global TV. And I welcome you back. And we'll see you at the Middle East HR conference.
Yes, I look forward to talking to you there. Thanks a lot for
Yes,
inviting me, Ed. It's been a pleasure.
my pleasure. Thank you. Angie in Zurich. I'm here in California. Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.